This tutorial is going to explain how to apply different colors to things that you image trace in Illustrator. So by default, if I were to click on, Godzilla here, and image trace, it's going to turn black and white like we already know. If I come over here and come into my preset and choose one of these numbers of colors, it's basically limiting the colors to the palette. I'm sorry, the color palette is being limited to the colors that were already there. So these are like the most prevalent colors in the image, and basically it had to conform all of the colors that were there into the 6 that I chose. Keeping in mind that white is one of those 6 colors, because that is here, that ends up being, of course, in the background, which I explained how to mitigate in the earlier tutorial. So how do we add, how do we get different colors to show up here? Well, with the logo project, we know that we could expand this and all of these would turn into separate little chunks. We could select them with a direct select tool. We could change the colors manually exactly like you did with your logo. But that could be very time consuming. So what I want to show you is how you can create or how you can open up other color palettes, basically, that are ready to go in Illustrator. And the first thing that you're going to need to do is open your swatches panel, which is right here. It looks like it has it's a little grid of a 3x2 grid. A swatch is basically a color. It can be a gradient or other things, but it's basically a color. And what we need to do is we need to load color groups of swatches of colors that are all going to work really well together. When you click on swatches, you're probably not going to see anything here, but if you click on the bottom left corner, you can see that there's a swatch libraries menu. And look at all these different things. There's art history, color books, color properties, foods, earth tones, all these different things. Some of these have more things inside of them. Like here's basic graphics. There's, just kind of folders within folders. So let me try this. Let me go to, I don't know, saturated colors. And what that's going to do is bring up another box here. You can see I had Impressionism open before, so that's why that's showing up there. But now there are these different color groups. Each row is a separate color group. So this is a group of 3 colors, so forth. And these are 4 colors, and these are 5 colors. Basically, if I like any of these, all I have to do is click on the folder here for any of them. So it doesn't really matter which one of these I click on, because you'll see in the next step, I'll have an option to choose whichever one I want. So let me just click on one. Boom. When I do that, it adds this to my swatches box up here. I can get rid of this now. Now, over in my image trace panel, instead of the palette being limited, I can now choose saturated. I can choose the color group I just opened. But what the heck? What is going on here? These colors that I'm seeing aren't in the particular group that I chose. That's because by default, it is using all of the colors that are in that entire group that I clicked on, that whole section. Now I can click on each one and I can change the colors to a very specific, sometimes they don't work so well. I can change it to a very specific group of colors, or I could keep it with all colors the way it was before. And again, now, because these don't contain white, what will happen if I ignore white? Nothing. Because the part of the image that's this negative space is no longer white. It is this kind of ochre color. How would I get rid of that? Well, I'm going to expand it. I'm going to click off just like I showed before. I'll click on that color and delete it. And now I have my kind of very flat looking Godzilla floating in the city there. Of course, I'd have to go in and delete that little bit of that ochre too, because it's got left behind. So that's definitely one way of doing it. Of course, once I expand it, I no longer have that option to go back and choose different image trace options. So I'm just going to back up to before I did that. So again, there are lots of color groups built into Illustrator. You can also create your own color groups. You can do it manually by clicking here to create a new color group, and you could just name it whatever you want. And basically you can make a blank group, and now you can go over here to your color. How do we get these open at the same time? So color and swatches seem to be together, so I'm just going to kind of do this. And now I'll have to create a new swatch. So let's say I want to create a color that is this blue, and I want to put that very color blue inside of this color group. Well, first I'm going to click on that. Then I'm going to click up here, and I'm going to create a new swatch. And basically it's going to say, hey, what color do you want it to be? Well, it's the color that I already just collected. So I'm just going to click OK. That puts it up here, and now I can just drag it down into that group. I could go back to my color here. Looks like I sort of limited to it. So if you notice here now, my color, my color just kind of is now only that color, that from dark, light to dark. So I might have to come up here and go back into RGB so I get all of my colors back. And I could click on a different color. I could create a new swatch with that color. I could drag this down into this color group. And now over here, I could choose... Oh, I'm sorry. I haven't saved it yet. So now what I'm going to have to do to save this thing is I'm going to have to save this color group. So what I'm going to do here is go to this menu up at the top where I had to go to click on New Swatch. And I can save my swatch library, basically, is what's going to happen here. It's going to take a second. I'm just going to save it as color group 1. Let's click OK. Now I have to load that color group. It's kind of another step, so I'm going to have to click on here, or I'm going to open my swatch library. I'm going to go to what's called user defined, because those are the group, the group that I just created. And I'm going to open color group 1. Now I can come over here to my palette, and here's color group 1. Again, it's using all of the colors there. So now I could come here and I can choose the saturated ones that I had before, or I could choose the color group that I just chose, which is not working at all for whatever reason. This is sort of like the tones must be so similar that it's just turning it all into blue. I should probably add more colors before before doing this, which I could do. I could go back and add more colors. I could resave it if I needed to. It's not usually very necessary to create your own color groups from scratch like that, but you absolutely can. I'm just going to back up from here for a second. We can also create our own color groups from a whole different image. So, like, yes, there's Impressionism, right? When we loaded our swatches, or or we went to the swatch library. There's art history, there's impressionism. But what if I wanted to create, let's say, colors specifically from the Starry Night or any other image that I might have? Maybe it's my own painting, and I want to create a color group based on the colors I used. Well, I could actually open the Starry Night in Illustrator. It's a little big here. But basically what I could do is select this. I'm going to image trace it. Once again, it's going to be black and white. I need to get it to the number of colors that I want. So I'm going to go to the image trace. Let me go to something like, I don't know, 6 colors. Let's see what that looks like. If I don't get the colors I want, I might add more. We really want, for the most part, because of sort of the graphically oriented nature of our images in Illustrator, our main goal, we generally want fewer colors. Think about fewer colors that really work together so that your imagery sort of really pops and has that very sort of bold graphic quality to it. Some of this takes a minute. Like, this has taken a while because this is a high quality image. The higher quality of your image, the longer you're going to have to wait for this to happen. So just be patient. If you click stop, it might actually take longer to stop than for it to continue. So that's not too bad. There's a bunch of colors there. Let's say I wanted all these colors. I'm good with the 6 colors that are here, and I want to save those as a color group to apply to a different image. I'll first have to expand it. All of those, this is still one layer with all of these colors, and all of these little chunks of imagery are all kind of still glued together. Once I click expand, it is going to separate those all into separate little chunks. Now, when I go to my swatch, the top of right of my swatch menu, and create a new color group, it wants to save a color group based on the selected artwork, which is the Starry Night. So I'm just going to name it Starry Night. That color group has now been saved here. I still have to save it, and I'll still have to open it in my other image once I do that. Again, this is a little bit of a process. So I'm going to click here. I'm going to save my swatch library. I'm going to call it, it's already called Starry Night. Awesome. Just click OK. Now if I go back to here and I want to add the Starry Night colors to Godzilla, I'm just going to click into my palette. I'm sorry, I have to load it first. Sorry about that. I totally forgot that I have to go, that I have to open it first, just like I did before with my hand chosen colors. And now in user defined, I have I have the Starry Night, not just the color group 1. So now I can choose Starry Night, and boom, those are my colors from the Starry Night. So again, you can manually create color groups. You can use color groups that are already built into Illustrator, or you can create your own from scratch based on imagery that you bring into Illustrator yourself. So again, lots of different ways of kind of dealing with color in Illustrator, and a very sort of tight color palette is going to be extremely important with all of your Illustrator projects. The color and sort of the design and the overall composition is going to be far more important than worrying about whether or not this looks like a believable collage, because that is not the goal in Illustrator. It's quite a bit different than what our goal was for most of our Photoshop projects.